My name is Stuart Wilson. I'm the pitch manager in Croke Park, National Games Development Centre and the Turf Farm, which we're at today, working on getting it ready for the concerts for 2019. So we've been using turf from the UK for the last, for many years in Croke Park, and we travelled over to see the turf time and time again. We test the turf every time that we go into concerts, and the director of the stadium, Peter McKenna, decided to come over for one of the visits, and we brought over a couple of players with us as well. Barry Cahill and David Tracy came over, and they actually tested the turf, different types of turf over in the UK, and they played on them to make sure that we were happy with, obviously, Gaelic sports being played on, and they wanted to, we wanted to know that the players were comfortable and felt happy with the type of turf that we were using. So after the visit, which was in 2017, we were sort of, myself and Peter were chatting on the plane, and we'd sort of spoke and said that we actually thought that we could do this, do it ourselves in Ireland. So we looked at some land, a couple of different types of land we looked at, and we came up with the farm here in North County Dublin. So the farm was purchased, and there was a good bit of work that needed to happen on the farm. So basically the farm had been used for years and years just for animals to graze on. So to turn that into an actual surface that you can produce turf on, we needed to work on the drainage of the field, and obviously the levels of the field as well. So we went through a process called what's called a cut and fill. So basically taking the hollows out on the high spots and making sure that the field is level. Once we'd done that, then the whole field was sort of power harrowed, tillered, and we got the levels right into the field, and then we put a full irrigation system in. So the field itself is the field that we're using at the moment is 40,000 square metres. It's enough to obviously take to be able to grow turf for two Gaelic pitches, really, if you're looking at sort of 15,000 square metres, and then there's plus a little bit more space for returfs for things like concerts. So the actual farm itself is 67 acres. So the rest of the fields at the moment are being used for growing maize. So we're just using one field at the moment, and at the present time we're growing 5,000 square metres for this year's concerts. The benefits of growing our own turf is when we're bringing it in from the UK, it can be harvested and put into refrigerated lorries for 16 to 20 hours. So there's always a risk that's involved in that, because when turf's rolled up, it's obviously it's going to be put in a place where it doesn't really want to be. It can get you can get heat damage in the middles of the rolls, and you can also get free frost damage on the outside of the rolls, because the lorries are kept at certain temperatures, which is around about sort of 0 degrees. So it's very rare that happens, but there is always the risk involved in that. So there's always the risk as well of if there's sort of ferries that if they was to go on strike or anything like that. So with this, growing it in Ireland and literally round the corner from Croke Park, it's a massive benefit. So we will be harvesting turf here the day of when we returf, so that'll be literally 3 days after a concert, but we'll be harvesting in the morning, and those rolls will literally go rolled up, and they'll be laid in Croke Park within 2 or 3 hours. So there's a huge benefit to that. We don't need to use freezer lorries, they'll go on open back lorries, and we can have a lot more control over it. So when the area is actually ready in Croke Park, we'll be literally cooling the lorries down, so we know that it's not going to be rolled up for too long, and it'll, the next lorry will then be harvested. So there's so much more control over it, and it reduces the risk massively. So when we actually strip the turf here, we'll actually use the harvesting machines that are used in the UK. So the guys will come over and they'll actually harvest for us. So there'll be the prep work that's carried out after the concert in the stadium, which is re-levelling and making sure everything's sort of perfect for the turf to be laid. We measure the depth of the turf to ensure that when we're actually removing the turf before the concert, to make sure that that's exactly the same as what we'll be taking out of here. So The actual process will be that the turf will be harvested, it will be transported into Croke Park, and then it will be laid literally within, you know, sort of 2 or 3 hours. So it will speed everything up for us, and I think, you know, we'll have a lot more control over the quality of the turf as well, because what we'll be doing is trying to replicate everything that we do in Croke Park building up to a concert, plus, you know, the nutrient inputs and things like that will make the turf hopefully be exactly the same sort of quality as what we're dealing with in Croke Park. The concerts, obviously you see a pitch covered and you see areas being returfed, and there's always going to be a worry that, you know, the pitch isn't going to play the same as what it would do before the concert, but we do so much performance testing on the pitch, so we're measuring the section that's kept after a concert, we're measuring the section that then comes in, the new turf that's coming, and we can ensure and we can actually manipulate the turf to ensure that it actually plays at the same levels. So the firmness levels, the moisture content, the traction will all be exactly the same. So that there's a monitoring process that will go on for weeks and weeks prior to the concert, and then straight after the concert, building up to the first games, we'll carry out maintenance practices on the pitch that will ensure the new section is exactly the same as the old section. So we're here on the turf 2 days after we harvested from the turf farm, and everything has been installed into the stadium, so everything has gone as smoothly as it can. In fact, it's gone very, very well, so absolutely thrilled with the results. The turf itself has blended in really, really well with the rest of the pitch, which is probably better than we've ever seen before, and the reason for that is because we've been able to put that personal touch on it. We've mirrored the maintenance practices that have been happening in the nutrient input that's gone into the Croke Park pitch for the last month. So yeah, the blend is fantastic. The same, you know, the same cultivars, the same seed, the same grasses. So it's gone in exceptionally well. So we're absolutely thrilled. I think this project is one of the most unique projects that you'd see in a stadium around Europe, if not the world. There wouldn't be certainly any stadia that I know of in Europe that would have actually bought their own farm to produce their own turf to bring into their own stadium. So it's very, very unique, and it's a very, very special project. So it's something now that we know we can grow on. We've put the first set of turf in, and I think the farm's now just going to grow and grow. The games on Saturday are obviously the big part of this, so we've got the turf in, that's worked really well, but the most important part of this now is to make sure the performance of this pitch matches up with the rest of the pitch. So we will be carrying out numerous tests on this pitch for the next 3 or 4 days. We'll be working on the presentation on the pitch, and then on Saturday, before the actual game starts, we'll actually do a full performance on the pitch to make sure that everything blends in, which will include things like traction, ball bounce, surface penetration, the firmness. So it's very, very intense testing. So we know that this part of the pitch will perform exactly the same as the rest. Yeah, so going forward, the farm is going to be a real asset. It's the fact that we were harvesting turf at 7:15 on Tuesday morning, and we were laying at 10:15 in Croke Park is, you know, it's an unbelievable difference compared to taking turf from the UK that was taking, you know, 20 hours, and the risk involved in that is huge. So it's you know, the turf coming in, you'd hardly even know it was harvested. So it's absolutely fantastic, and the fact that we're producing and growing turf in Ireland for Croke Park is brilliant.
I'm really pleased the way it worked after the Westlife concert, the laying of the pitch. We have a superb team of pitch specialists here, probably the best in Europe. So the amount of prep work that they put into laying the pitch and making it right, and then bring it up to the same standard as Croke Park before the pitch was harvested was tremendous. All of that really helps, and we're one of the first now to do this, and I think that's a tremendous achievement. Well, we see that we can use the turf farm beyond just Croke Park, so we're going to provide goal mounts for Tipperary thirlists, for example, and I think the opportunity then to bring that turf, that pitch, to other stadiums around the country is there. It's a 50-acre farm, so we have lots of opportunity to do it. And it's not just pitches we're doing there as well. We are growing vegetables which are used here in the kitchens. We're growing herbs, and we have our own Croke Park cheese, so herb-infused goat's cheese. And we have a whole hives and a set of bees out there, so we have now Croke Park honey. So there's a whole integrated way, and much of this is about explaining to people who come that sustainability is about little things we all need to do rather than big dramatic pieces. So yeah, there's a lot of hinterland around the pitch, but the pitch is the dominant part of the investment, and it really it's proven itself this year, leaps and bounds.